The history of the United States of America is a vast and complex story that spans from its pre-Columbian origins to the present day. It is generally broken down into several key periods. Pre-Columbian era, prior to 1492. The continent was inhabited by diverse Native American peoples for thousands of years, with rich cultures, societies, and languages across North and South America. Exploration and colonial settlement, c. 1492-1763. European exploration began with the voyages of Christopher Columbus in 1492, followed by other Spanish, French, Dutch, and English explorers. The English established 13 colonies along the east coast of North America, beginning with Jamestown in 1607 and the Pilgrims at Plymouth in 1620. This era saw the development of distinct colonial societies, economies based on agriculture, including the institution of slavery, particularly in the South, trade, and the gradual displacement and conflict with Native American populations. The American Revolution and the New Nation, 1763 to 1815, growing tensions between the colonies and Great Britain over taxation and governance led to the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783. The colonies declared independence with the Declaration of Independence in 1776, establishing the United States of America. Following the war, the Articles of Confederation proved insufficient, leading to the drafting and ratification of the U.S. Constitution in 1787 and the establishment of the federal government. George Washington was elected the first president in 1789. This period also saw significant westward expansion, including the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, national expansion and reform, 1815-1860. The concept of manifest destiny fueled massive westward expansion, leading to the acquisition of new territories, often at the expense of Native Americans and Mexico. This era was characterized by rising sectional tensions, primarily over the issue of slavery, which created an increasingly stark divide between the industrial North and the agrarian, slave-holding South. A surge in reform movements such as abolitionism and women's suffrage also gained momentum. Civil War and Reconstruction, 1861-1877. The irreconcilable differences over slavery led to the American Civil War, 1861-1865, between the Union North and the Confederate States of America, South. The war resulted in the preservation of the Union and the abolition of slavery via the 13th Amendment. The Reconstruction era followed, attempting to integrate the newly freed African Americans and the Southern states back into the Union, though it ultimately faced significant backlash and the establishment of discriminatory laws known as Jim Crow. The Gilded Age and Progressive Era, 1877-1920s. Rapid industrialization, urbanization, and mass immigration led to enormous economic growth, the Gilded Age, but also severe social inequality and corruption. The Progressive Era saw widespread reforms aimed at addressing these problems, regulating big business, improving labor conditions, and expanding democracy, culminating in women's suffrage with the 19th Amendment in 1920. Boom, bust, and global war, 1920s-1945. The Roaring Twenties were a time of cultural change and economic boom, followed by the devastating Great Depression starting in 1929. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal program sought to provide relief, recovery, and reform. The U.S. entered World War II, 1941-1945, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, mobilizing its massive economy and military to play a decisive role in the Allied victory, emerging as a global superpower. The Cold War and Civil Rights, 1945-1991. The Cold War dominated foreign policy, a geopolitical rivalry between the U.S. and its Western allies, and the Soviet Union and its communist bloc. This led to conflicts like the Korean and Vietnam Wars. Domestically, the civil rights movement led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr. fought for racial equality, resulting in landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Contemporary America, 1991 present. The collapse of the Soviet Union marked the end of the Cold War. The U.S. experienced economic booms and recessions, technological revolutions, the internet and digital age, and new challenges in foreign policy including the War on Terror following the September 11, 2001 attacks. Current history continues to be shaped by issues of globalization, social justice, political polarization, and technological advancement.